We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Hey guys, I want to welcome you guys to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. We've got a great episode this week. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notifications bell, and be sure to like, comment, and share if you like this episode, and we'll get into this week's sponsor and show. This week's episode is sponsored by CityVest. CityVest has quickly become the most popular and best way for doctors to invest in top-performing real estate private equity funds that are usually reserved for institutional investors. This unique access to investing in these institutional funds is available for the first time ever through CityVest's easy and secure online investment platform. CityVest does the hard work of conducting due diligence and vetting the investments. They even get a third-party due diligence report that is posted on their website. As a result of aggregating a several $million investment amount into their access funds, CityVest gains access to investing in the institutional investment and is able to negotiate better investment terms such as a 12% preferred return. You can check them out at cityvest.com or go to the link in the show notes below. Now on to the show. Before we begin today's content, here is a quick disclaimer. The information and material presented here is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advice. The content is not a recommendation to buy or to sell. Some of the content may be for accredited investors only or may be sponsored posts. Every investment carries risks. Results have not been verified, so carefully weigh those risks against your investment goals and objectives and see if acting on the information matches with your investment thesis. Do your due diligence prior to investing, and as always, do not invest more than you can afford to lose. So welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about 4 different types of freedom: financial, time, location, and emotional freedom. And my mission is to empower you, bring you guests from all over the world doing a variety of things so that you can become educated and make informed decisions about your freedom journey. So today we have Michael de Haan. He's coming from from Australia, and he is a financial wellness leader. He's going to talk about financial wellness, resiliency, emotional resiliency. He's got a very impactful story that I'm excited for you listeners to hear. So Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm so glad we were able to connect, and like I said, you have a very interesting story, very inspiring. So tell everybody where you came from and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so my background's always been with money, financial planning. I've done that for over 30 years, and I knew how to invest money for people and create wealth for people. But I never really understood the emotional side of it, the psychological side of money. And I went down a pathway where I had a good job, earning lots of money, but I was, in a sense, disconnected from myself and my family. So it was all about earning more money. It was all about accumulating. And what I found was I was finding myself under a lot of financial stress. So over time, what that did to me is that I started to have anxiety that led down to depression pathway. And then I was diagnosed with an aggressive prostate cancer, which I'm over and I'm quite well now. But I actually had to start looking at what was going on in my life. Why did I continually have this financial stress? And then look internally around my behaviours and my beliefs around money and how that was creating this stress in my body. So what I did was I started to do the internal work and really understand my money story, my money journey. Growing up in a family, we had a lot of scarcity and self-worth, and I was just playing that out in life. I was on autopilot. So I really had to look internally to really go through what that is happening for me and how to really support myself to create the freedom, create the joy back in my life, and really live life intentionally on what I desire. And unfortunately, a 22-year marriage broke up at the same time, but now I've done the internal work and I've actually got a mapped out vision about what brings me joy. I've got financial freedom in my life, so I can make decisions based around my purpose, around relationships, and around, as I said, what's going to really bring me that joy and happiness in my life. So it's a big difference when you can actually just look at where you've been, look at where you want to go, and have a clear vision of what that looks like, and then start living that every day.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points, and I was recently finished a book. The Body Keeps a Score, where it talks about where we store up emotional trauma and really, a lot of the limiting beliefs and about around money and relationships, come from our upbringing. So it's quite interesting. I have a question that when you talk about the internal work that we'll talk about later, but um you talk about what impact does societal norms and conditioning have on both men and women when it comes to finances?
Certainly, you find in particular with men that we just can't express our emotions. So whatever we're feeling, as I said, being brought up around scarcity, around money, you can't talk about money, but you bottle up those emotions in your body. Men aren't supposed to be vulnerable. Men aren't supposed to cry, and in doing that, you can't actually express and sort of reach out and ask for support. So then with that internalization and with my beliefs around self-worth, how I was brought up, am I worthy? So I found myself self-sabotaging. I found myself making poor financial decisions, even though I pretty well knew deep down that I was making poor decisions. And that's what was creating that financial stress. And if you look at for women in particular, so they're taking on this, generally speaking, this carer role. And the carer is looking after everyone else first, not putting themselves first. So that in itself, in regard to the money side of it, there can be that dependency where they're dependent on someone, and that in itself can create a control. So it's really around both men and women being able to talk about their emotions, talk about their beliefs, and talk about their journey. And when you do that, Chris, you actually release it from your body. And you can actually, when you hear yourself talking about some of these stories that no longer serve you, you can start creating new stories. And that's very powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Um, and what's interesting is because I like to look at it from the energetic standpoint, where we talk about emotional trauma and how did you, when you said internal work, which is very fascinating because I'm always on a journey of personal development, how do you transform our limiting beliefs and behaviors around money into something more empowering?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that comes up a lot. And when I say doing the internal work, I really had to be vulnerable with myself and look in the mirror and just go, well, how was I brought up? What are my beliefs? So when we talk about self-worth and how I was brought up, and I had what I call that sort of ceiling where I'm not worthy of anything more. So then what I was doing is self-sabotaging, as I said, and making poor decisions to keep me under that ceiling, keep me under that self-worth. Who am I to have financial freedom? Who am I to have joy in my life and live on purpose and sort of create change in the world? So it was really, and that's quite, I suppose, vulnerable when you actually look in the mirror and just say, well, these are all stories that I've carried in my subconscious mind I've been on this sort of hamster wheel for 30 years of my life and just living a life that was designed for me. I wasn't living my own life. So in saying that, then I actually said, well, what does my future self look like? What do I want it to be? What beliefs need to serve that future self? And that's where the empowering thing is. So had a sort of a victim and very innocent mindset where I just didn't look at money and just hoped it would fix itself, which it never does. And then I was holding trauma in my body around that victim mentality. So those two in particular kept me stuck. And the freedom of actually saying that I'm worthy. This is my future self. This is what I need to change. Those stories, yeah, as much as they're valid, because they did happen, when you experience them and bring them up in your body and actually say, well, there was a reason for them. I'm choosing to change. I've got an awareness now and I want to transform into this new life, which is all about, that purpose, that joy and that freedom, which is everyone deserves that, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite interesting. And then I'm very fascinated by the release. And so, what role does the subconscious mind play in stopping people from creating financial well-being?
I think that's a really valid point because the subconscious mind runs 95% of our life. So I talked about sort of being on autopilot. So your subconscious mind, in a sense, is there to keep you safe. So whatever beliefs or programs that you hold in your subconscious mind, and generally they're from quite a young age, when you're in that sort of survival mode and your conscious mind hasn't formed. So from that 0 to 7, and then events during your life and societal conditioning, that's what sort of runs your life. So when you actually can delve into the subconscious mind and going, well, what's sitting there? What are my beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
What are my programs? What are the habits that I'm showing up? What are the behaviors that I'm showing up that no longer serve me? And I love a quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton, which has really supported me in transforming my life, which is your life is a printout of your subconscious mind. So if you feel stuck or if you feel that you're under a lot of stress, you really have to not look externally for any sort of validation, look internally and just go, well, that is my life and I acknowledge that. What do I do now? Awareness is very powerful.
We hope you don't mind this brief interruption from one of our affiliates.
Doc to Doc is a personal lending solution designed by doctors for doctors. We understand that doctors' financial situations change faster than an insulin drip in ketoacidosis. And we also understand that doctors are the most reliable borrowers in the world. Through our proprietary algorithm, we're able to provide personal loans at great rates with amazing flexibility because we take into account your schooling, your specialty, and where you are in the medical journey. Doctors come to us after they've matched into residency, and we loan for all sorts of personal reasons, from credit card debt consolidation to family expenses and medical bills. We speak with everyone who applies for a loan and offer fixed interest rates and flexible term options without prepayment penalties. If you're a physician looking for a personal loan, fill out our application form now. It only takes 3 minutes, and we'll get back to you with a decision within 24 hours.
How do you support people to have a clear vision of their future self and live intentionally towards that vision?
Yeah, that's really people actually understanding, and I take the money side out of it. It's the money's just energy. So I work with our clients to create that future vision, and it's around 5 principles. So it's very much around where do they want to live, what do they love doing, what do they want to be learning, what's their legacy, what do they want to be known for. So, and what makes them laugh, what really brings them joy. And we start to paint that picture of what that future self looks like. And it might be 5 years down the track. And then we actually do some sensory work around that. So we actually get the feelings associated with that. So you look at that home, you're walking in there. Is it nice and bright? Is it Is it ocean views where you can actually see and smell the waves? Is it in the countryside where the trees are, the wind's going through the trees and you hear the birds? You actually start building this really strong story in your mind about what your future is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you can paint that picture, then you go, well, that's what I desire. That's what will bring me joy. And having that clarity around that future self, then you can say, well, what do I need to do now to be more intentional around tracking towards that future self?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that intentionality. And then the other question I have is, why do people self-sabotage their ability to create financial well-being?
And they self-sabotage because that's the role of the subconscious mind, which is to keep you safe, to keep you in this sort of safe mode. And the subconscious mind, it's the programs and the beliefs that sit in the subconscious mind. So if that's saying that you're not worthy, who are you to build wealth? You're not good with money. You're brought up around scarcity, around money. Your mum and dad fought about money all the time. And these are just examples. So a lot of times, to feel safe, you don't accumulate money because it's not part of your program. So you can actually make poor financial decisions that keep you stuck. You can actually, one of the biggest things I see, especially for high income earners that don't have a great relationship with money, is that money flows in, but money flows out as quickly as it flows in because there's no intention around that. There's no intention around the flow of money, and accumulating money for a purpose around bringing you joy is the key.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you talk about all of the different programs and all of the beliefs and how because money is basically an idea and it's financial energy, and so what types of resources would you recommend for people interested in getting into the internal work, becoming more aware, and then possibly getting working on themselves and deprogramming and releasing all of these negative beliefs?
And the first thing is really having a curiosity around money, around your beliefs and what that looks like. And we do a financial wellness scorecard where people can actually tap in, answer a number of questions, and they can get a snapshot of where they are in regard to their money, in regard to their beliefs around money. And then they can actually start going through a questionnaire which identifies different money types that might be disempowering them from achieving financial freedom. And that's important. They're the two keys there in regard to starting to unblock limiting beliefs around money. Then you actually go through your money story, go through how you're brought up around money, because a lot of this, as I said, sits in the subconscious. So when you can bring it up and understand your money stories, understand your relationship with money, your emotions and your feelings around money, then you actually start from a point there going, well, I'm so confident around money. I believe that money has a purpose of creating financial freedom for me. What do I do now? How do I actually create a flow of money that supports me? In regard to physicians, how do I take back time? How do I get off that hamster wheel in regard to working long hours and start building that life of financial freedom? So having that clarity as well.
Yeah, I like that. And then the other thing is, you specialize in creating safe conversations around money for couples. I'm just curious, um, when you mean safe conversations, describe what is, or the elements of a safe conversation around money versus like toxic or a negative.
And if we look at the stats, we look at money being one of the leading causes of relationship breakdown. So the reason is that we don't talk about money, generally speaking. It's generally a taboo subject, or if we talk about it, it's generally in a sort of argumentative sort of state. So as an example, one partner might be a spender and one might be a saver, and the saver might have that belief because they've had scarcity in their life, and the spender's living in the moment. So having that conversation, not when it's heated, like you get the credit card bill and you go through and you see your partner just spending on all different things, and you feel heated, you feel not heard, you feel not respected. It's really having a conversation in a peaceful space where you can actually say, let's just start understanding our money beliefs. Let's talk about how were you brought up around money? What does that mean to you? Let's talk about what we're trying to create. What does that freedom mean to us as a couple? And start aligning your vision, start aligning your different stories. And they're quite powerful, the stories where someone might say that I was brought up with a lot of scarcity around money, that mum and dad were really poor, and whenever I get money, I just spend it because I've never had it. I've never understood accumulating money because my family, we never accumulated money. So when you actually get to the root cause of why people were acting in different ways, you can create an understanding. And with that understanding, it supports the intimacy in the relationship where you're shown vulnerability, and then you can actually start mapping out a plan going, so if I spend a little bit less, so I've listened to you, if I spend a little bit less, that's going to make you feel heard and it's going to make you feel safe. And the saver might say, well, how about I start working on, my beliefs around I need to save, I need to hold on to all the money for whatever reason, whatever their limiting beliefs are, and start working together in regard to honouring each other's sort of money beliefs, but actually working as a couple, working as in a partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, we're nearing time, and then, you've given a lot of very deep insights, especially, with deep inner work and, working with coaching clients, you can hear some of the beliefs and frames that, either propel or hold them back. How does one change their money story and then change their life?
And with the change in the money story, it's having an awareness of the money story. And we go back to that autopilot where people are just going through life run by their programs, run by their subconscious. So consciously looking at what your money story is. And as I said, that can be quite vulnerable. And we always look at your mum and dad, how you're brought up, but they did their best job. So you're just going, well, that's a lot of the stories. I've seen how that's played out. For me, it was around making poor financial decisions when I, in a sense, knew that they were poor. And I look back and there's a bit of shame around that. But then honouring that, saying that was how I was brought up around money. This is how it's played out in my life around money. That's my money story. And here's what my future money story looks like. Here's what my future self looks like.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Well, you've given a lot of great insights, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I actually, had a lot of deep insights myself. I know a lot of people are interested in contacting you and working with you or visiting you. How can they do that?
Yes, I think on my website, which is Michael at Quantum, QUANTUM, LEAP global.com. They can organise a 30-minute meeting just to really start that awareness, start sort of digging a bit deeper around what that looks like for them. And it's in a very safe environment. I do have, as I said, one of the most powerful tools that I offer clients is that financial wellness scorecard. So I can send the links through to you because they can do that in their own time. So they can get an idea and start looking at some of the transformational tools that are available through that scorecard application. So that's a really good starting point, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. And for all the listeners out there, Michael's links and his bio and all of his resources will be included in the show notes. So Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
What a fantastic show. I hope you enjoyed our very special guest. Just remember, as a shout out to our this week's sponsor, cityvest.com. Cityvest gives you access to the best real estate private equity funds with enhanced investment terms, verified due diligence, and lower risk. You can check them out at cityvest.com or click on the link in the show notes below to hear about their upcoming investment offerings. If you enjoyed that episode, don't forget, that's just the free content. We also have paid premium content subscription with better guests, information, updates, and discussions that can't be accessed anywhere else. You can subscribe to our premium content by clicking on the link in the show notes below to subscribe. Just a quick note, members who sign up for the bottom floor price introductory the first year will be grandfathered into that price for life. I expect the monthly subscription amount to increase quickly next year and the year after, so don't delay. I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website, www.drchrislumdphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.